Hi, this is the Cat's Library. I'll be your librarian today. I'm going to cut to live action for the rest of this intro. Hi again. So this video is a redraw of an old OC from my sketchbook. Here he is now. Midway through this book, I dated this page right here. Okay, so I dated the page, and I think that meant that I drew the blue Wildcat here, either one in 2015 or 2016, and I was drawing the book for about 3 years, I'm pretty sure. I would have been 13 or 14 when I drew this guy. I am 24 now. This is one of those situations where I think I was just drawing a whole bunch of characters. Yeah, I can't say the script and show you these at the same time, so this is going to be complicated to edit. Okay, so I was coming up with these characters while I was in speech and debate tournaments, and I did just making up characters just because. And, yeah, I didn't have a flip phone or references. I didn't do references at the time. This drawing right here in this video, I did use a lot of references, but you don't see all of them because they were on my flip phone, because I didn't want to get into copyright problems. But I did learn. Okay, so on screen right now, you should see the photo of the original blue Wildcat drawing, and I'm going to go over, like, everything about that drawing. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to voiceover now. Okay, so one of the first things that you might notice is that I was very heavy-handed with my writing and drawing as a child, and that you can see everywhere that I tried to erase things. I also don't know how to convert a photograph to a high-quality image, so we'll just see how well this works. I might need to put text boxes over the actual text. Top to bottom, I labeled that the hair was dyed, and that he was wearing a cat mask. I think I was going for more of a diagram sort of effect before changing it to be more of a character sheet. And then I had all of the other characters also have labels explaining their costumes. I don't know what I was trying to do here, but I spelled die wrong. It looks like I originally called him the Blue Wilder, or was always going to call him the Blue Wildcat, drew the word wild too big, pivoted to change the name to something that would fit on the page, decided that I was right the first time, erased Wilder, which was way too dark, and indented into the paper, and then drew Wildcat a little bit better. I'm going to interpret that as one word that I once again ran out of space for. I don't remember if the mask was supposed to be actual metal, or if it was just silver in color. The way I made silver was by blending a gray and a blue, because I thought of silver as a blue-gray and not as shiny gray back then. That logo was way too big and very flat looking. I only had a limited number of pencils, and I think that this one was called Skin Color. And so I gave all the human characters in this batch of superheroes and supervillains all of the same skin tone, because I took that very literally. Just the one pencil, too. I wrote and erased super strength because I was still trying to lay out the words well. On the other side, I wrote super flexibility with an arrow pointing at his hand for some reason. I think I decided to put both of these at the stat sheet part of the page, which is why I erased both, even though it left that whole side of the page pretty blank. I put special effort into making the stripes symmetrical with each other. I gave him underwear on the outside of his pants. I'm not sure if I thought that that was a good idea or not, because none of the other characters have this, and it sort of looks like I tried to color over this with the blue. I added in a mechanical tail. I remember that I wanted it to be the same silver as the mask, but I didn't want to blend that same color again. and so I left it blue. I also am getting this vague feeling that I noticed that he was leaning over and added the tail for balance, but added the tail to the wrong side because I couldn't remember how that works. I also have a note that says mechanical tail for balance plus weapon. Weapon isn't spelled right. Also, this is how I used to draw shoes. I later overcompensated by making shoes big and boxy. I've actually redrawn this before writing the script, and the shoes took me about an hour to get right. There's another erased bit where I had an arrow with super speed pointing at the shoes, but I did a much better job and almost missed this. That or it was between other text. On to reading all of that text. Traits. Spelled incorrectly. I spelled it the same way for every character in this set. Class, I plus M, which stands for having inherent powers and mechanical powers. Going across. City, Skyville, north and east. This is the map I drew. I might have added this in later after I drew the map. Back to the powers. I abilities. Strength, speed, flexibility, stealth, climbing, swimming, 9 lives, and temporary invisibility. M abilities. Special tail that acts as a whip. I didn't read through this very thoroughly before my redesign, and could match this with the secondary use of the tail, which is as a cane, and so redesigned tail shocks people, which will make more sense when you see it. Rank, senior, an older hero who is crossed out, very mysterious, and not crossed out, is good at any undercover job. His advice is always taken into account. So here I was obviously trying to cross out the part of the sentence that you could still read, but the overall sentence would make sense if you didn't read the crossed out point, and I think I did a pretty good job with that. Secret identity. Trent Kestrel. Works odd jobs and lives in a trailer park. He has a limp, dyes his hair football colors. It does look like I erased quite a bit here that I can't really read. It looks like I said unknown and then decided that I wanted to write down what I know as the author instead of how the other characters perceive him. His team is Shaw, the Superhero Association of Adeland. Adeland is the island that they are living on. I can't remember if it's supposed to be an island or a continent, but I'm deciding right now it's an island. So, after all of this build-up, I guess it's time to go on to the redraw, and it took me, gosh, that's a long time. Hopefully I'll have enough to say without it going too fast. I might have to finally try cutting out certain phases of the drawing, but I always say that and always chicken out before actually doing it, so we'll see. Spoiler, I didn't do that. Engage speed paint. The first step was the initial blockout sketch that had the general pose and proportions that I wanted. On Wikimedia Commons, it said that this Captain Marvel comic cover was a public domain image, and it was very similar to what I wanted to do. So that was the one reference, and I also was following my original drawing. These are the only references seen on screen. The rest were on my phone. I actually tried with this first sketch and made a whole lot of tweaks instead of waiting for another sketch layer to fix my problems with it. I decided here that I wanted to use square shape language for him, with a mix of rounded squares and sharp triangular diamond-like squares. It seemed to fit his role as one of the leaders of the team, and his chill yet stable personality. I think that that's what I had in mind for him, and if not, that's his personality now. Next, I made some more refined details with a pencil brush sketch. While the blockout was made with a thick, more painterly brush, this layer was very scratchy and made with about the same line width as the final line art is going to be. I started with the face because that's usually what I start with. This was more complicated than usual because I was trying to get an expression across while only showing the eyes through the mask. I looked up references for ski masks and made the eye holes more believable because in the original it sort of looks like the eyes are part of the mask instead of behind it. There is basically no sense of depth in the original. I also tried to give him almond eyes like in the original because it's a very cat-like shape. This is probably where I used that cover pose the most, making sure that I followed the anatomy because it's still a part of drawing that I don't always get right. I decided to replace the outside underwear with a belt that holds up the combat tail. I also changed the outfit to be a tank top and jeans instead of whatever he was wearing before. I was going for a cobbled together sort of superhero look where he could have bought or made the suit himself. I left the hands for slightly longer and I made the feet a little longer, physically longer, instead of the two shapes from the blockout. This is probably where the accidental heels started coming in. I put in some more blobs for the hands that I intended to flesh out later and then sketched in the mechanical tail. This is the point where I differentiated the metal part of the tail from the wires. Though with the final render it's more like a plastic instead of a metal. I think that there is a support pole in the middle of the tail that can support his weight. I made a few more minor tweaks to the stance and the silhouette and anatomy, everything really. Most notably, I ended off this part by making the ears much higher than the hair for shape hierarchy purposes. I also added in these headphone things over his actual ears. I think that these improve his hearing by acting like a satellite and then amplifying the sound into his ears. Also, they might act as headphones in the normal sense where he could listen to like music or podcasts or news reports or his teammates through like a walkie-talkie sort of thing. They're very multi-purpose, probably. I looked up how to do this thing where there's an automatic outline around the things that I draw, and I used it to draw the wires and then the logo on his suit. I simplified the logo a lot to match actual superhero logos better. You can see from the reference of Captain Marvel there that his is just a zigzag. Next, I went through the process of putting on the final line art layer. I decided to have this be a little bit scratchy and put in some cross-hatching in the places where there was going to be the deepest shadows. So this is more of the same. As I said before, I spent an hour on the shoes, but I guess this is as good a point as any to make up some new lore for this guy. I think I got really focused on the character arcs with my more recent writing. The original sheet has a lot to this character. He has an interest outside of his profession, that being football. He's working class, which is an insecurity for him since no one on his team knows this, which serves as a mental inhibitor, as well as providing him with a certain lifestyle of not really holding down a job, implying that he prioritizes superhero work over his secret identity. I wanted all of these characters to have different economic statuses when I first made them. He has a role that he plays in his team and an allegiance to his team. He also has a practical inhibitor, that being the limp. If I remember correctly, he had a problem with his leg before he got superpowers, and that leg has normal human strength, and the other one has super strength, after he got the superpowers. I don't remember if I ever gave him a backstory about how he got his powers. I'm fairly certain he never had a goal or motivation, because I've historically had trouble with that part of storytelling, that being the plot and connecting the characters and plot together. I might have had something there and just forgotten because I didn't write it down or wrote it down in a notebook somewhere where I forgot about. Okay, onto the rewrite / finally giving this guy a backstory then. He certainly deserves it. Life before the Alienus attacked was still strange, but it was a normal strange, if that makes sense. It was much more rare for people to have crazy powers or try to blow up a building just because. Things were simpler. They were devastating and confusing, but simple. Or at least that's what Trent told himself. He even told himself that before the invasion, when he was trying to get to sleep at 3 in the afternoon after a shift at the cannery smelling of peaches, and before the shift as a night watchman at the Museum of Natural History. The cannery was his favorite between the two. Preparing food was actually beneficial to society, and the museum was boring, according to him. Also, his co-worker at the museum kept talking about how he gave up on his dream to be a history professor. For the first couple weeks, Trent listened and let Noah vent about all of his problems. For the next month, Trent tried to offer multiple solutions of how Noah could improve his life. For the next few years, Trent just tuned out the same conversations that remained virtually unchanged every day, every shift. His own dreams of going pro football had been cut short by an injury in college. Due to heartbreak and a general disinterest in a lecture format over hands-on learning, he had dropped out and gone straight into his 2 part-time jobs. Outside of his 2 jobs, he had a myriad of hobbies to try to fill the void of football. He went to various gyms to rock climb and swim. He briefly tried cycling and walks, but his leg gave out, and so he stopped doing that. He explored the city of Skyville, going to every tourist location. He made an unofficial goal with himself to try out a new restaurant, at least once a week. He hung out at a lot of sports bars. It was sort of weird that he didn't drink, but somehow he still fit in to a certain degree. They appreciated the designated driver, supposedly. He never missed a winged caracal game, when they were playing home field in Skyville anyway. He started giving money to charity. The day that he got his powers, he was 25 years and 3 weeks old. There were some strange lights up in the sky, but that was probably just some planes or solar flares or a weather balloon or something, and nothing to miss work over. This was also before cell phones, by the way, like just before, so late 1980s, early 90s, not like the 1800s or something. He clocked into work and sat down at the security cameras. Noah wasn't there yet, but that was a lot like Noah. It was sort of weird that none of the guys from the previous shift were here. It was also weird that he hadn't seen anyone on the way in. He tried the radio, but no one picked up. Most of the monitors didn't have anyone in them, but there was some movement in the space exhibit room. It looked like there was some guy in a Halloween costume moving around, and there was also a new spaceship exhibit that wasn't there a couple nights ago. Trent picked up his cane and his taser and started making his way to the space exhibit. Each thud of his cane reminded him of how he couldn't get there faster, and also how getting into a fight was probably a bad idea. Nah, he'd be fine, he had a stick. The elevator ding was surprisingly loud, and Trent flinched almost imperceptibly. He put extra focus into walking as quietly as possible with his limp. He leaned against the wall with his back to the entrance and spent a moment to listen for whatever was going on in there. There were some inexplicable computery beeps and scraping of metal, and also the sound of someone moving around. They weren't even trying to be quiet. Trent jumped out and brandished his cane. "Stop right there!" The alien guy nearly jumped out of his skin and turned around. He had silvery gray skin, a large mouthful of glowing sharp teeth, claws at the end of his fingers, and a massive moving and twitching antennae in the place of hair. Other than that, he looked fairly human. He was tall and thin, and looked just a bit older than Trent. He was very light on his feet and in constant motion, and it was unclear if this was anxious energy or if he was simply an energetic sort of person. Hey, bud," said the alien. "I come with a lack of war." He made a little wave while making the peace gesture. Trent barely raised an eyebrow. Uh-huh. Yeah, you're not supposed to be here this late. The museum is closed. I just need you to exit the premises if you would, sir.
But I'm an alien. Don't you want to know why I'm present?
Don't know, don't care. You have to follow the rules just like everyone else. Bud. The alien smiled at being surprisingly treated like a person.
Yes, that's casual justice. It's the end of the world, though. Also, my commander beamed up the rest of your friends or coworkers or whatever. Beamed up is how your Earth movies explain that, right?
Well, technically, I defected in silence.
So he's not really my commander anymore.
I'm unemployed
as a ship technician and teleportation specialist and don't really have combat experience.
So I'm really counting on you believing me and quelling your defensive intent. Trent used his cane to block as much of the entrance as he could and held the taser up a little bit higher. Explain. Okay.
I am one of the alienists.
We have emotion sensing antennae and mild telepathy that causes people or
predators to ignore us even in plain sight. I'm not using mine now.
Even though we're known as highly intelligent
to all the other cool aliens,
we imploded our own planet in the literal sense because we're actually kind of idiots and experimented with technology that we shouldn't have.
Here's a visual aid.
The alien held up his arm and tapped his watch, which glowed and showed a hologram video of the alienists drilling a hole into the core of their planet, causing it to break, burn, and implode. Trent nodded and did that impressed lip thing. The alien nodded and smiled enthusiastically, which showed off his mildly terrifying but mostly funny teeth. We didn't actually want to hurt the humans because we can, feel their emotions to a degree because of the antennae. However, upper management think of you guys as very intelligent bomb-sniffing dogs or like dolphins or something, no offense, but not actually as equals or worthy of cutting a deal to live here. Additionally, humans are not really unified enough to do that. Also, that's not as fun. Trent glared at the last part and the alien cleared his throat awkwardly. Currently, we have been acquiring resources from Earth outside the laws, as we've been doing research up to the eventual conquering. Shamefully, I've personally been researching humans as a teleportation specialist. And I learned that we are pretty much the same. I did let my people go, don't worry about that. He showed the beginning of a couple of news clips of people ranting about being abducted, and describing the alien who abducted them pretty accurately to how Trent could see that he looked. The people in the videos also seemed to be unmaimed and only a little bit traumatized. The alien continued his speech. I got in minimal trouble for that. Today was step 1 of the invasion plan, and I toggled back and forth, but finally decided to be pro-humans. While the alien had been talking, Trent had covertly set his cane down and leaned on it. That's good, I guess. Glad you're doing the right thing now. Thank you for your voice of kindness. Step 1 of the invasion plan was to target institutions that provide a unified sense of pride, including the news, the military, museums, schools, Congress, and sports teams. We probably should have also replaced the film and television industries, but we didn't. The alienists already teleported all the people involved in these institutions to the prison vessels with no weapons. They've also replaced the necessary personnel with disguised aliens and robots. I tried to save this institution, only managed to stop a couple of you from being abducted, but I did manage to redirect the replacement efforts. I don't know how long they will stay distracted. Trent paused for a moment. He briefly listened to his intuition, and that told him that the alien was telling the truth about wanting to help. So, what are we going to save them, or what's going on here? The alien blinked. From the expressions on his face, Trent could tell he was thinking about questioning why he shifted so fast, but decided not to agitate the situation.
This is a targeted attack that's planned to take over the entirety of Ataland. If we succeed, it's more than just them that's at stake.
Trent's walkie-talkie buzzed. He jumped and then turned it on. Hey, said Noah. I just got in. Where is everybody? Trent sighed. Yeah, get down here. We're gonna need to repeat everything. Who's that with you? Is he one of those Renaissance fair role players, but for space fiction, or something? What's happening here? The alien stepped forward. This isn't a suit. I just look like this.
I'm from a different planet. My name is John.
Yeah, I should get down there. Yeah, you guys stay right there. When Noah finally reached the astronomy exhibit, he almost immediately began freaking out over the alien. Freaking out as in that he was super excited and asked a bunch of anthropology questions. Would they be xenology questions? Trent and John had to repeat the whole exposition thing. After it was done, John sighed.
Okay, there's no way I could have distracted all the replacements.
We can still save the trapped humans.
Someone
inside the ship
needs to contact a teleportation
specialist on the outside in order to get anyone out. The ship doesn't have windows or doors. Someone needs to volunteer to go on board the ship as a metaphorical IV. Put an electric spear into the engine, setting the ship on emergency power, which will turn off the guard's coffee maker and the hot water and other luxuries. They'll just be fine, okay? Well, only this will cause the captain to call in the mothership. He must be allowed to verify his identity for the computer and when the IV needs to knock him out. The IV will then need to call me and I'll be able to teleport the kidnapped humans to Earth, specifically to Ataland. But we have to deal with everyone getting home and dealing with the imposters later. This role does require some degree of combat. However, I've been developing a way to give a human the powers of a tiger, because that is obviously the most logical solution.
So, which one of you wants to be a hero?
They're both quiet for a moment. Finally, Noah broke the silence. I think Trent should get it. Trent turned to him in surprise. He checked to see if Noah was serious, and Noah nodded at him. Yeah, I should get it. Okay, you seem awfully sure about this. Noah held up a finger and started to say something.
I'm still going through with it. Don't wear your socks on your head.
John reached into his spaceship and pulled out one of those syringes with the plastic cover where you can't see the needle going in. Trent pulled up his sleeve before John could ask. John walked over reverently and placed his hand on Trent's right shoulder before placing the syringe on his left arm. It automatically let out a puff of some sort of sterilizing liquid that also made that small part of his arm turn numb. He didn't feel the needle, but he felt the pressure and swell of the serum entering his body, changing the fundamental nature of what he was becoming. Something antithetical to who he was previously. Okay, John, how are we gonna get up there? Due to the script writing process of this video taking so long, I will say that they won. John modified the walkie-talkies so that they could communicate throughout the mission. A guard spotted them at step 1. Trent barely won that fight, though he was uninjured, and Noah freed a bunch of soldiers and other humans, and they started a prison riot. So there were no more guards bothering Trent. The captain did know that he was coming, and decided that he could end the rebellion on his own without alerting HQ. Trent had a far more exhausting fight than before, but overall he was doing better. He had figured out that his bad leg was still worse than his good leg, but that he could also turn invisible. In the fight, the captain ended up under some falling rubble of a support beam getting crushed. Trent helped him before a sharp beam from the upper deck could fall, therefore saving his life. The captain agreed to help with the teleportation as a one-time thank you, and because he didn't believe that their small team would be able to get the captured humans back into their lives after the Alienus had already been established. John, Trent, Noah, and the rest of the rescued humans did manage to take over a news station and get the people of Ataland to believe them about the aliens. The rest of the world would take longer to convince. John and Trent, as the Blue Wildcat, began the Superhero Association of Ataland to begin undoing the replacement. Trent put John in charge since he was the one making the plans and had the most knowledge of the enemies. John was hesitant about this, but he really grew into the role. Meanwhile, Noah went back to school for his master's degree. Despite Noah's best efforts, Trent lost his job. He had been wearing a costume for the whole rescue mission so that the Alienus wouldn't track him down, which had backfired because the humans didn't know that he was the one who rescued them. Noah and Trent also drifted apart, but they started making a phone call every 2 months or so and getting together once a year after that. Trent also eventually lost his job at the cannery due to having to leave in the middle of shifts, or arriving late, or not at all. Every time he lost a job, he got a new one pretty quick due to the Shaw program that provided a reference and job help to people going through a hard time. Despite this, he was happy because he was finally doing something important, and he found his people. Okay, so this video took a long time to make. Hopefully that means it's good. It might be a while before I make another one of these. I'm going to try to finish up the alphabetical animals videos, redesign all of my channel stuff again, and then go on to this idea I had for a solar system as aliens video. By then, I'm going to try to actually complete Mermaid this year. After that, and maybe if this video does well, I'll continue the story and draw some other characters from this story. I'll see you when I see you. Bye!